Welcome to the Filipino American Women Project, also known as TFAW Project for short, a podcast show that features stories and life lessons told by American women of Filipino descent. We're your co-hosts, Jen Amos.
And I'm Nani Dominguez.
And thank you for joining us.
If today's conversation resonates with you, text us and let us know at 415-484-8329.
And if you want to show us some love, buy us boba at buymeacoffee.com/Jen and Nani.
It says coffee, but we love boba. Again, that's www.buymeacoffee.com/Jen and Nani.
Awesome. With that said, thank you all for your love and support.
Now let's get into the show.
All right, hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Filipino American Women Project, also known as TFAW Project for short. I am your founder and co-host, Jen Amos, and I represent the listeners of the show who are estranged to their family. But I also have my co-host with me who likes to roll in deep with her family on the show. So Nani Dominguez, welcome back.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back.
Yeah, we are just extremely excited because once again, we are getting to know more and more of Nani's family. But before we go ahead and introduce them, let me do some quick announcements here. At the time of this recording, our academic paper, Pinay Podcasters, Building a Self-Sustaining Community Through Storytelling, Collective Healing, and Learning and Collaboration is now available at pinaypodcasters.com. So go ahead and check that out. You could also see the replay of our workshop that we did at the Bulasan Philippine X Studies Virtual Research Conference. So once again, if you want to check that out, it's available now, pinaypodcasters.com. Nani, any quick thoughts on, I know we've been bringing it up throughout all the weeks by now, but I think we have a good break since then. So any thoughts since, it's been a break, it's been like a week or two since we've really talked about this.
Yes, no, I feel like we have been trying to amplify this paper everywhere because it was a huge labor of love to create it and to get it to the stage or the format that it's in now. And it will continue to change as we continue to work on it and do other things with it. But we're just really excited to share it with you guys. And if you haven't already watched our conference or our workshop from the Bulasan Center conference, then check that out at pinaypodcasters.com. And there you can also find the paper. I've had a few people actually already reach out to me saying saying they did read it and that they really liked it, that they were really impressed. And so there's a lot more to get into. I feel like I've been doing nothing but talking about this paper. So I'm going to just let you check it out on your own, pinaypodcasters.com.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, for our conversation today, if this resonates with you, remember, you could always text us or leave us a voice message at 415-484-8329. So once again, that's 415-484-8329. And you know what, Nani, I realize I promote the number a lot, but sometimes people aren't ready to give their numbers. So if you want to email us, our emails are Jen, that's Jen at TFAWproject.com, or Nani, Nani at TFAWproject.com. All right. Well, that's it. That's all my announcements. It was the fastest announcements I've ever given so far because we are in for a special treat today. Nani, will you please do the honors of introducing your family on our show?
Yes, our guest today, one of which you guys have already met, my two aunties, my Auntie Fredette, or Marie, you guys know her as Marie, sorry. And my Auntie Jen and Fredette, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Hi.
Yeah. So quick question for you, Marie. What's it like to be back?
Good. Geez, a lot of the same feelings. Still nervous, excited, anxious, but happy to be here nonetheless. I think it's great to be able to share things with people in a way that you wouldn't normally get to. Mm-hmm. You know, you can only share so much on social media and, talking, but this is one way to kind of share our views and our stories with a lot of people. And I'm sure that it resonates and it's kind of a happier side to things, to a blended family.
Yeah. Well, we're really happy to have you back here, Marie. And you're right. I think that one thing I love about podcasting is I kind of like to describe it as long form media. And we are in a very fortunate time where we're not just submitting to the headlines and mainstream media and just snippets of, what's going on. It's like we have the time to thoroughly tell our stories on a medium such as podcasting. So I appreciate you saying that. And welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Auntie Jen, this is my first time meeting you virtually. So welcome to the show, first and foremost.
Thank you.
Yeah. And tell us, I mean, first and foremost, I'm curious to know what compelled you to say yes to join us on our show.
Well, Fredette just texted me one day and was like, oh, hey, do you want to do a podcast with me? And I was like, yeah, sure. And who was I talking to? I don't know if I told Kali'i or I can't remember who I was talking to. And I said, yeah, I'm going to do a podcast with Fredette. That's how everybody knows her, around us is Fredette. And they go, oh, so you don't have to talk much. She'll do all the talking. And I went, oh yeah. I said, that'll be good. I can just go off of what.
Love it.
Just let her lead. Yes.
Let her lead. I was like, oh, I love it. I was like, yes, she's good at that.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you. I think it's funny because, normally when Nani and I are co-hosting, I'm usually initiating conversation and Nani usually tags along or paraphrases what I say. So I feel like it sounds like we have some parallels here going on in our relationships. But whichever one wants to go first, tell us a little bit about your relationship, because I know offline we talked a little bit about how we're a blended family here. So maybe Marie, do you want to go first on that?
Okay. Well, I was married, which a lot of people that know me now don't always know, like the backstory. I was married for a long time, and I was married to Jen's ex-husband and the father of her son, her baby daddy. And so I don't know how to explain that, but even back then, like, I feel like because we knew each other, my sister, which you also know, and right, Jen,
Auntie Laura,
right?
yes.
Yeah, we had her on the show.
Laura. So she was friends with Jen. So I feel like we knew each other and we've always had a good relationship. Like, we never really had a bad one. I mean, we like bumped heads about things, but I feel like we just didn't have, I don't know, like we didn't start off in a bad place, I think. And I was at her wedding to Jason. I mean, like, I just feel like at this point we shared a lot of like really big moments with each other. And I was never bitter of that relationship because it produced their son, who's a very big part of my life. And I'm glad they had that relationship and all of that because it's part of my family.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And Auntie Jen, do you want to add along to what Marie? And we're going to be using Marie and Fredette interchangeably because the dualities, just like with Nani has a government name, we call her Nani on the show. But Auntie Jen, anything you want to add upon what Marie shared?
She's about right. So she was married to my ex-husband, which is Nani's uncle, her dad's brother. And gosh, it's funny because we started out as a small group, right, Patricia? And then we ended up being like this humongous, which side do I go to? On the holidays. So I was married to Mike and we have one son together, Kali'i, which is would it be your only first cousin on that side?
My only blood cousin.
Yeah, your only blood cousin.
Yeah.
Yeah, technically. I mean, really, you've got a million because of now, but
I have a million.
In the beginning, it was just you and Kali'i. And then Fredette came along and brought you 4 other cousins. And then who else? I don't know who else there is. But from there we grew. And we've always, like she said, there was little rough times every now and again, but for the most part, we got along. She was at my wedding. We were at all celebrations pretty much together. I think really our relationship got closer when Mike's mom passed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so too. That was a hard time. Yeah.
Sure. That would be my grandma for anyone who listens to this show and hears me talk about her all the time.
Oh, wow. I can connect the dots now.
Yeah. So I know it's confusing because we have different perspectives here, but basically I know both of these aunties through my uncle D or Mike, who also can go by different names according to who you're talking to. I feel like he needs to be in this conversation. I'm just kidding.
Oh, no, please don't. Please don't.
He's not ready.
No boys on the show anyway.
Oh yeah, that's right.
To join us on Chismes with Jen and Nani on biasboba.com if you want his perspective. But this is a woman's perspective today.
Yes.
Okay,
right. So D or Uncle Mikey, he was married to my Auntie Jen first, who's known me since I was born. And at the time, like she said, it was just us. It was basically me and my dad and my mom for some time, I guess, while they were still together. And then Auntie Jen, D, and Kali'i.
And then I think I was around 8 or 9 or 10 or somewhere around then when Dee and my Auntie Fredette got married. And like Auntie Jen said, she brought me 4 more cousins. So yeah, the dynamic quickly changed from it just being Kali'i and I to then a whole gang of kids and cousins, or siblings for you guys, but cousins for me, that we're just pretty much always together and doing everything together. So that is kind of the backstory from my perspective.
Yeah. It sounds like you all have just a mutual respect for each other to, have this blended family. I'm curious if it was always that way, or did it kind of blossom into that way throughout the years? I find blended families so fascinating because even in my own family, I don't have a lot of like my relatives, like they kind of, once they're married, or if, it's just kind of my understanding. Like it's rare to me, like unless someone passes away, like a spouse passes away and then they remarry, let's say the next year, like my grandpa did, even though he got married. Okay. I'm going to save that for another time. But anyway, the only time I have found that we remarry is, if someone passes away, but it's very rare in my own family to have experienced divorce. And so I'm, fairly, I know so little about blended families, and I'm curious to know, because obviously we're all on this conversation today. Has this, I guess, harmony in a sense in your relationships always been this way?
I think that it has, because I feel like I didn't go to it not liking her to begin with. Like I already met her prior to dating Mike, like, you know what I mean? And then going through all of that, I kind of feel like I walked in completely open. I was, my sister and her were friends already. So like I liked her. And then I feel like she's always been kind to me, like from the day that I like moved back to the Bay Area, because I was living in Colorado at the time. So when I was moving back to be with Mike, like we've never had a weirdness or anything. And I feel like if anything, it's kind of the flip side of things. I feel like it was so easy for us to kind of just deal with things together that it almost kind of like Mike was kind of like, wait, you can't just make plans with her without checking with me. You know what I mean? Like, so there's other, like,
he was like, what are you doing?
Yeah. But I was like, well, it doesn't matter. It just makes more sense because we both knew what the calendar was. Like, if she gave it to him, he would still have to check with me. Like we had a really good as a blended family could be. Like we would sit together. I've even been sitting in the stands with Jason, who's Jen's husband. Until his stepdad. Like I've been sitting with him, like it's been a good situation, because at the end of the day, we're all really just there supporting the kids and stuff like that. I feel like it's kind of been easy like that. And then my kids, like we can't change it. Like my kids would want to sleep over. Like if it's not my weekend and he has to go back to his mom's house, my kids would want to go with him. So like it just kind of would make things easier if we got along than not.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I'm really just asking from a place of genuine curiosity, because like I mentioned, my family, I don't know a lot of, one of my cousins I'm aware of has like remarried like years ago, and his ex has remarried. And yeah, there's this whole blended family situation, but I haven't like witnessed it firsthand or experienced what it's like to be around that kind of situation. So I think it's very fascinating. And Auntie Jen, is there anything you want to add upon what Marie shared?
I think, like you said, we've always been a blended family. Just a background on my husband comes from a blended family as well. So like from the beginning, when I remarried, I came into a relationship with him where both his parents were remarried, and both his parents came from a family of like 7 or 8 siblings that still lived in the area. And a lot of them were remarried. So he helped me navigate being in a blended family, if that makes sense. And the kids loved each other. He came home and he was like, those are my brothers and sisters. I have to say, at first it was a little difficult just as a parent hearing, all of a sudden you have all these siblings and new parents. But quickly they became family. Mm-hmm. There was rough times every now and again, but that's with any family. But we had, that's easy to get along with. She's fun to get along with. We make jokes all the time, which is funny. Yeah. It's like we're the ex-wives club.
Like it literally is. We said like, he sure knows how to pick them, kind of.
It's just hilarious when we're together, I think. And they're like, who are they? Oh, well, that's my ex-wife. And that's my ex-wife.
Yeah. And then like, yeah, so it is kind of funny when we're around together. And then you got to think too, like now, like our kids are older. So, I mean, it is different. Like it's so much fun to be around each other. Like, oh, let's have a drink. Like we don't everybody. Yeah, we don't have to watch anybody. We don't have to deal with anything. Like this is a great time. So it's just a good time now. And I feel like also, I mean, we've gone through a lot. There's been so many changes, even in all of our lives, you know, like with parents and with other, you know, other kids being born and now grandkids. Like we've gone through a lot of things, good, bad. And so I'm like, and now you can only laugh because we're so mellow now. And maybe because I also smoke a lot of weed, but I'm just like chill, like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. About everything.
Yeah. A lot more chill now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, and then, or the kids will laugh or they'll say, or, you know, they'll laugh because I don't have really anybody to gossip about my kids with, but her. Like,
yeah.
Well, who am I going to gossip with? Or my sister, which is a whole nother combo, but yeah.
And that's, you know, Jen and I are working on a project offline with Fredette or Marie, where I remember you kind of touching on this a little bit and the approach that you have to blended families or even just exes in general for anyone that you date now. And, you know, your concept is just, it's so foreign to me because of my experience. And it's also so admirable because of that reason. You know, like when we were kids, like I was saying offline, I've had step parents of my own, which I didn't have that experience. It was complete opposite for me. I hated my last stepmom. And even to the point where when me and Mo were kids, I used to like talk to her and I would be like, just trying to find someone to relate to. Like, are you sure you like D? Like, why do you guys have such a good relationship? Like, don't you hate him? Like, I kind of wanted her to hate him just so someone would like understand how I felt, you know? And, you know, now that I get older and I can hear you talking about these things and see you guys together and the dynamic that the two of you have, it's like, oh, well, it really depended a lot on like how she approached me too, you know, because I just wonder like how you guys develop those relationships with each other's kids so quickly to where there was never that like tension or that like wall up that I had with my previous stepmom.
I think it just is organic. I think it can't just be forced. Like I know a lot of times like people try to really force these relationships and it's just something that happens over time and organically. Like Jen was saying, like you are going to butt heads. Like I think you're going to butt heads with everybody that you deal with in a close relationship, even with friends, you're going to butt heads. But I think like the only thing that's different now than what it was before is maybe my approach to things. Like before, I've always wanted to like hit it head on, but head on looks different now to me than it once was. I'm a little bit more mindful of the words that I choose when I speak to people because once they're out there, you can't retract them at all, even when you don't mean them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, go for the jugular all the time. So I just like, I let it.
Fredette's different than she was as a young mom.
I just am so, I swear to you.
She had 4 young kids. I mean, that was a handful. And Lee, 5 young kids.
Just said, and like throwing up too, like all of that, like all the kids.
Oh, that was just, stuff, like, I thought that was just Clea that threw up all the time.
All of them. Oh God.
Yeah. Khalii always throwing up or having a nosebleed.
Carsick. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he always wanted to be with his brother. So like she said, organically, I mean, he got along with his stepbrothers, which he doesn't even, let's not even say stepbrothers. Right. It was his brothers.
Right.
His brothers. And he loved them from the beginning. He always wanted to be around them. He's never used, he's honestly, in his blended family, he's never used those words. No, there was never a step. There was never a half. There was never anything like that. And to this day, he still doesn't. So I have to go, who are you talking about?
Yeah.
Which one?
And even like with Isai, Jen's son with Jason, Lee's brother, like my kids love him and have known him like his whole life too. So I feel like it's like they would want to be over there. And it was like, okay, like, what am I going to do? You know, I mean, so they would always want to go over there. Please.
Like, you know, I really appreciate that verbiage of, you know, rather than saying step sibling or step brother, step sister, you just say brother, sister. And I feel like that's very indicative of the Filipino community as a whole, right? Where it's like, oh, that's my aunt. I mean, she's not like married in, it's like a family friend, but that's my aunt, right? Just like with my cousin, it's like we all have this way of really making people feel like family. And even as a blended family, not even using the term step, I think is pretty incredible. I mean, again, I don't have a lot of experience with it. So it's to hear the verbiage, like all I know is what gets shown on media and how people like make it look like, you know, you go head to head with like the exes and, you know, the, you know, Cinderella story, right? Like the older stepsisters, that you think of it in that way. But I just really love that you both are a testament of what blended family, I believe, looks like today.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Nani, I want to see if you got any thoughts.
I did just have a thought more on just wondering how you guys cultivated this relationship. And I guess Auntie Jen, this is more of a question for you because I do have the context from Fredette on how she, you know, just doesn't enter into relationships wanting to like beef with her exes in general. And so I think that helps a lot. But, you know, for you as someone who, I don't know if you had already met Jason at the time that Fredette came into our lives, or if that was after, you know, without his help navigating that kind of blended dynamic. How were you feeling when she first came around? Were you like skeptical, like, who is this chick coming around my kid? Or was it just automatically from the jump, like, oh, Kali'i seems to really like their family. Like, you know, as long as he's good, I'm good.
That's exactly it. Of course, I was a little skeptical at first. Mike had some sketch people around.
To say the least, yes.
Marie's like laughing.
And I met Jason prior to that's how come, like Fredette said, she came to our wedding because when Jason and I got married is when, I think shortly after is when Mike and Fredette, she moved from Colorado here and she came to the wedding. And then after that, I mean, we pretty much were a blended family and it wasn't hard at first. I wouldn't say that it was like simple, but you know, we just grew as a family. It takes time, just like with any other family. You just have to go with everything. And really my priority was how Kali'i felt. And Kali'i loved them. So I had to love them, you know, and in the end, if you had any beef with anything, I mean, who does that hurt? If there's nothing physically or, you know, mentally happening, what kind of beef are you supposed to have? What are you supposed to be? What are you mad at if you don't get along? I always hear from other people with their blended families, oh, you get along with them? Why wouldn't I? Why would you make it difficult on yourself? Yeah. You're going to be a part of that person's life for the rest of your life. Yeah. Why wouldn't you love them?
Or on
or at least, yes. Yeah, you're going to be in that child's life for the rest of your life. They're going to be family forever. So why wouldn't we love each other? So I just think you have to make it simple for yourself.
Right. And I love how you guys both come with that approach, like regardless of any judgments or opinions that you guys could have had about each other, it was more so like, you know, I'm doing this for the benefit of our family. And, you know, regardless of how you felt about each other or felt about D at the time, you know, which also is like an interesting
he's a
factor.
Good guy. Let's not make him sound like
No, of course not. But just like, you know, ex baby daddy or ex-husband coming around with a new wife in general, most people are going to be like, who the fuck is this, you know? But
and I mean, we don't mean to like press that stereotype on you two. I think that's why we're talking about this, because it's so fascinating, you know, like it's fascinating the best way possible.
With all those names, right? When you use those names, there's a connotation of, you know, ex and step and that's not how it is. We're a big blended family.
Yeah.
And the thing that you guys also have to understand too, there is also a difference because Jen did not want to be with Mike at all. Like when I started dating him, like if anything, Mike still loved Jen. I like was nervous at her wedding. Like he had his thing. And I feel like that's why, okay, that's another show, but that's why that's why the other stuff before me didn't work out really. And I was just more like, I mean, like I could live with that. I get it. Like, at that point, I love Jen too. I understood I was liking her. I get it. But then it got to be like, he would be like, are you guys laughing about me? Because we've had inside jokes then. We have inside jokes now. I think we have inside jokes So forever.
Forever.
And it's just funny. I feel like she can read me. Like I could look at her from another part of the room and she already knows, like she's trying to look at what I'm trying to tell her without me telling her. I swear to you. And so I just feel like it's like a friendship that just happened over, like it's been a long time now.
Yeah.
And we've shared a lot of like big events, good and bad, with each other. And I think yeah, I'm like, my kids wouldn't imagine like to not have her and Jason and their family included in our stuff.
Yeah.
So it's nice. I feel like there is a happy side of everything. And if you can't, for anybody that's either contemplating or being with anybody, or you have a choice to be in a blended family or not, if you cannot unconditionally love those children on either side of that situation, I would say don't do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Don't fucking do it, because we're creating, trauma and things that those children are then going to need, therapy and healing from. So like, if you have a choice, like don't put that on anybody, like leave that situation, because if that's not the situation for you, there's another situation for you. But, think about that, because there's even a lot of things I would have done different.
It's the kids that you worry about. They're growing up. The influence you have on them at that age, for us, when they were that age, is huge. How do they grow up? What is their mindset? That's what I always thought is, how's he thinking? What is he thinking? Yeah. And what's her kids thinking? And that's what my mindset was.
Yeah.
When I hear you both talk, I really admire the fact that you both look beyond yourselves in a sense and look at the community as a whole. And it's like, why would we want to make it more complicated for ourselves? Like, let's simplify this, let's do this for the collective. And obviously it benefits the collective. Right. And so I just, I like listening to you both just talk about this out loud, and even just the type of verbiage and the way that you approach the relationships and each other, I think is just quite astounding. Especially for me, I often talk to Nani about this, and even on the show, like how estranged I am to a lot of my family. So I like to live vicariously through Nani's stories of her and her big, blended family all over the West Coast, And so, Nani, with everything that Marie and Auntie Jen shared, any additional thoughts you wanted to add?
Yeah, no, I think it speaks to your relationship, really speaks to both you guys as mothers individually, and how like forefront you carry that with your identity. And, it's just more important than anything, I think, is the point of what we're trying to say here, was how the two of you getting along added to the family experience or added to the family's bond, rather than, making the kids, again, have like some kind of trauma or have some kind of complex about something that was taken away from them, or something that they felt was being taken away from them. It's like you guys really, you both, because you guys were able to get along, you really added to their experience. And look at them today. I mean, closer than ever, thicker than blood, whatever the saying is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, you know what? I mean, and you're part of that.
Yeah.
Can I add also, Grammy Edna always brought everybody together too. She always made sure, like, she would take Kali'i to football practice when I had him, my weeks that I would have him, from Vallejo to Concord to Clayton.
Yeah.
Every single day. I was like, okay, if you want to do it, I'm not doing it.
And then come pick me up in Oakland.
Yeah.
And take us all to church.
Yeah. So she had a big part of it too. She did a lot to keep them together.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Wow, I love that. I really love how we opened up with this conversation about blended families and both of your relationship. And to our listeners, if you want to learn a little bit more about Marie's background, she was on our show, episode 96, back in March 5th, 2021. Wow, so much has happened.
I know.
That was 3 months ago. Could you believe that?
I know. No.
Like so much. And I feel like every time I caught up with you, like there was always something new also. So, I mean, 3 months is like forever ago.
Yeah. Like, that old thing.
Yeah. Wow. Times have changed for sure. But Auntie Jen, I want to go ahead and get to know you a little bit more if you're open to sharing a little bit about yourself to our listeners. So typically on our show, being the Filipino American Woman Project, we always like to ask people a little bit about their family history and, what does it mean to be a Filipino American woman today? And so would you like to share a little bit about your family background and, what the label, what the theme of Filipino American woman means to you?
Well, I'm the middle of three girls. My parents came from the Philippines. So I'm first generation here. And I wish, like as a Filipino woman, I like the fact that you girls are doing more to make it aware how our culture is. Because when my parents moved here, I feel like Filipinos assimilate well to other cultures.
Yeah.
And we were losing out on our culture. And I like the fact that we're getting back to roots. Because I think to myself, because my husband, he's Mexican, and we both talk to each other about, gosh, we need to really make sure we teach our children our culture. Because really, in reality, it'll die with us, with them, that is, if they don't learn.
Yeah.
And so my kids are, they're blended. And so I think to myself, this is really like, as a Filipino woman, I need to pass on that culture. I understand Filipino, my parents are Kapampangan. And so I don't know Tagalog very well. And then I was telling them how, like, I could still make out most of Tagalog, but like when we go places, I forget that they don't understand any of it because I can't teach them that. So it's nice that you guys are doing what you're doing by passing on the culture and making women aware of the Filipino culture. I really like that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Auntie Jen. I mean, I started this show like not knowing a lot about my culture myself and even my family lineage. And part of starting the show was to piece it together through other people's narratives. And so I feel like, Nani and I collectively 100 episodes later, I feel like for me, I know so much more about Filipino culture, all thanks to people who've been on the show. And so, obviously assimilation existed for a reason. And now we are in a time and space. And we talk about this in our paper, PanayPodcasters.com, where, you could actually excavate now. You can go back in time and talk about our history and our narrative and really bring it to light today. Because I think, again, going back to the power of podcasting, we have that opportunity now to tell our stories. And so I really appreciate you acknowledging that, because sometimes, Nani and I are in the thick of it that I don't realize the impact that we're making until Nani tells me like, oh, people have reached out about the paper already. And I'm like, I didn't know that. I didn't know the impact we've been making. So I just really appreciate you bringing that to light for us.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's very affirming.
Yeah, I was just thinking about what you said about how it's easier, or it seems easier, because of maybe the lack of historical context that we have, that Filipinos can just easily assimilate into other cultures. And I think that there is a big aspect of that that's true, because we are so kind of easy to get along with. We're very collectivists, and that makes it easy for us to kind of blend in a lot of different spaces, not just in America, but in all the other places. I mean, Filipinos are everywhere around the world. And we're going to be actually interviewing my dad soon. I think that his interview will probably come out. I know. Talk about chismes. His interview is going to be coming out soon, like close to this one. So stay tuned for that. I know. Me too.
Yeah, that'll be, in case our listeners are wondering, yes, we are bringing on Nani's dad for the first time on our show at Chismes with Jen and Nani, which you can have access to at biasboba.com. Of course, Marie and Auntie Jen will definitely give you the hookup if you want to listen to that conversation for free. No worries. Just so you know, it's being recorded. So obviously I can't lie about that, but I'm just really excited about that. And, we've been talking about this with Chismes with Jen and Nani, how we want to be able to bring on people in our lives to have deeper conversations about, what our experiences are with other people that aren't Filipino American women, on our show. And so I'm just really excited to have your dad. Like, I feel like it's an odd confrontation in a weird way, but I'm really just excited because I know that he's been listening to the show. I know he's been giving you feedback. You did get your microphone, and I'm just excited to finally meet the man, that you talk a lot about.
For sure. Yeah, no, like I was saying, I came up with this long list of questions because you guys know my dad and how non-talkative he can be and kind of closed off.
Yeah.
You can't even imagine, right? And so like Jen said, I feel like, in our minds, it might be this like informal, like confrontation kind of thing. But anyway, I shared this long list of questions that I came up with for him to try and like excavate this information from him. And he was like, yeah, I know you and Jen are going to grill me about assimilation. And, I don't necessarily agree with all the hardship that you always talk about on your show. And, that wasn't my experience. And so I think that speaks to a lot of what Auntie Jen was saying about Filipinos being able to
assimilate pretty easily into the American culture here. And basically him trying to defend that as his experience, as also someone whose parents came from the Philippines, but also he did too, actually, because he was born there. So yeah, it's just always interesting to get the different perspectives and hear the different background stories, since there hasn't been a lot recorded in terms of like history books or ethnic studies or, you know, information that's just like readily available to us. And so we're trying to change that. And that's why we always ask that question, and everyone's answer looks different. And I think it's difficult for a lot of us to, you know, like you just did, step back and be like, wait, how am I a Filipino American woman? You know, like, what does that even mean?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
No, I mean, and there's no answer, you know,
there's no right answer. I don't think there's a perfect answer we're looking for. It's really like, you know, really the show is like, well, you happen to be of Filipino descent. Tell us your story, you know, like, where does that come from for you? You know, and so, yeah, ever since I started with the name, I have found that in every conversation, the definition continues to expand. And, you know, we've even brought on, you know, a Filipino Canadian, you know, recently on our show to tell her narrative and how she has a lot of family here in America. So she's very familiar with what's going on here in America. So the stories that come out of the question are always very fascinating, is what I was trying to say. So, you know, Marie, I know that obviously people can go ahead and check out your last episode 96 if they want to learn more about your background. But I'm curious if you had any thoughts, you know, based on, you know, what Auntie Jen shared, as well as what Nani shared. Any thoughts you wanted to add to the conversation?
I mean, that really sums it up. I mean, we're really in a good space. I'm shocked that you got, if anything, I'm shocked that you're interviewing her dad.
We're going back to that.
Like, wait a minute. When are you doing this?
We're doing this
and
next
what questions
weekend.
Are you asking?
Actually, we're doing that this weekend. And then hopefully it can be released sometime for like Father's Day, because I just realized that is coming up soon.
Oh, yeah.
So that might be a cool like Father's Day special.
Yeah.
But
wait, are you guys like going like deep?
Yeah. I mean, I have a whole page full of questions for him, and he said,
I know that you do, but I'm saying, like, are you want to do, like, you're like really pregnant right now.
Well, that's also why I wanted to do it. Just like when we had you and Mo on, and I wanted it to be kind of like capturing a moment in time for baby Mia. I also want to capture this moment in time for my son, and also to get my dad's kind of thoughts on that, you know, because my dad always wanted a boy. He really wanted me to be a boy. And ever since, he's just been surrounded by girls. Even now, like all his stepkids, all his step grandkids, or I guess we can just call them grandkids. They're his grandkids, you know, are girls.
Yeah, you're right.
So finally, he's getting his first boy, and it's kind of like history repeating itself, because with me, I was for my grandma Edna, who we were talking about.
Girl. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she always wanted a girl, and she ended up having all boys. And then came me, and I was the first grandchild plus the first girl. So we had, like, you know, like I talk about often on the show, a really, really special relationship, a very, very deep bond. And I just am so curious to see like how my dad is going to be with my son and what kind of relationship they're going to have. So I'm going to ask him a lot of questions to try and just like see where his head is at with that, you know?
Oh, wow. I mean, okay. I'm just saying, like,
it's like, okay, good luck.
Trust me, I'm managing my expectations.
Okay. I mean, I know, but I know Jen, and I don't know. Okay. Okay. I think she's a good person to interview him. She can ask the questions that are tough.
Yeah. I mean, he listens to the show. So I think, you know, I let him know that too. I was like, yeah, Jen is excited to meet you. And, you know, I have my list of questions that I shared with her and I shared with you, but mainly they're, you know, obviously my questions.
Wait, but did you share them with him already?
Mm-hmm. He wanted me to, yeah.
Oh, that's good. This is a nice team effort.
Okay, then that's okay. All right.
So it's not a confrontation.
So it's not,
not really.
No, I want to make it as like comfortable as possible for him. Obviously, I don't want to, he can get easily his feathers ruffled. Yeah, exactly. But I think Jen is also good at like, you know, mediating things like that as well. And she knows enough about our relationship by now to where she has the context that she needs.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, then good. I'm excited for you guys then.
Yeah, stay tuned.
I'm excited to listen to it.
As am I.
I'm sure everyone is going to be wanting to
Mom,
do
do you want to have a watch party?
I love it.
I said, let me have a watch party.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Well, in the name of like passing Filipino culture down to your kids, I'm wondering just what that has looked like for you guys so far. Like, what are the ways that you guys have tried to do that? Aside from, I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly for Det, but I feel like when we were younger, maybe like, I don't know how old I was, but I feel like you went through this whole phase of like learning Tagalog, didn't you?
Well, I was born in the Philippines, so I feel like I always like spoke Tagalog, but my dad didn't want us to have any accents or anything.
Yeah.
So he would like not want us to talk back in Tagalog. So I still like when I want to, or when I want to have a conversation, I still can do it completely and fluently like English, but it does have an American accent. It's kind of broken and I really have to think about it, but I can hear it exactly the way I hear English, but he just never, like I said, he just downplayed a lot of like Filipino things. And even like Auntie Jen said that, you know, learning about all of, I don't know why I call her Auntie Jen when I'm talking to you guys, but that's weird. But just learning even from some of the posts and stuff like that, there's things that I don't know. And sometimes I'm embarrassed that I don't know. I mean, like my kind of things that I have passed down, I feel like our work ethic and, you know, just things that we do. Like I'm a neat freak or I'm like, like food that we cook, things like that. And just maybe the level of respect, like, you know, that you give somebody when you're entering their home and, or, you know, just things like that, those kinds of cultures. I mean, we both dance, which is not, it's not Filipino, but it's almost like a Filipino thing to dance. I know it's kind of weird, but it's something that we've shared with our kids and it's a big part of our life as well. Like, I feel like those are the kinds of things that we've passed down to them. It's like really kind of hard because I don't have like these deep seated like Filipino knowledge, you know, or anything like that.
And that's valid. You know, I always want to like make sure to our guests that there's no pressure to know culture to be on the show. I mean, this is why the show exists, because we don't know, a lot of us don't know our culture. And so I think, you know, and Nani was really asking from curiosity to like, do you try to hand down the culture? And if you do, how do you do that? You know, and even if you don't, I mean, I think it's just as valid. Like there's no shame if there's other things that take priority, because what I come to find, at least even for myself, it took me till college to actually care about my culture. I didn't wait on my mom, you know, to teach me. Sometimes we figure it out later in life. And so although it's, you know, ideally expected of, you know, let's say the mother or the matriarch of the family to preserve culture, that's not always the case in our families, you know? And so even if you're not handing it down, I think eventually the kids will want to know that, especially as they have kids and, you know, they want their kids to preserve that culture. But I think that learning our culture comes in different seasons in their lives. And that's okay because, hey, we're always going to be Filipino. So we're bound to want to know that part of ourselves, right?
And also we're the ones defining that. Like for me, I really just ask that more from a place of like wanting to understand the difference between the intention and the impact. For me, you know, you guys are the Filipino women that raised me and how I relate to my Filipino identity. And so for me, that was more so the things that you said that are more nuanced, you know, like coming into someone's house and kissing them, saying hi and bye, and having that kind of centering that family dynamic at the heart of everything that you do and every situation that you walk into. And so, you know, I went through that whole phase too of just like, well, what really makes me Filipino? Like, how can I claim that? You know, like I don't speak the language. I eat the food. I don't know how to cook food because I don't cook really that much at all. But, you know, aside from just like the standard Filipino American ways of defining yourself as that, I didn't really know what that meant for me until I really started thinking like, how do I embody the things that you guys taught me, you know, and the things that I have learned through you, just from you passing them down, not necessarily sitting me down and like teaching me Tagalog or something like that. So yeah, again, just trying to kind of understand the difference between the intent behind that versus the impact that it's had on me.
I feel like, I mean, that number one thing is like being very respectful of others. Like, I feel like that's a big Filipino trait, that I feel like most Filipinos have, you know what I mean? They're kind, they'll respect their elders, and all those good things. And so that's also something passed down.
Yeah. Auntie Jen, I thought we'd ask you the same question as well. How are you preserving culture? How are you handing it down? What does that look like for you and your family?
Well, luckily for me, I have a grandchild, and my daughter-in-law is going to be teaching. She got a job as a teacher, and she's teaching. The school that she's teaching at wants her to incorporate Filipino culture and teaching Filipino language.
Nice.
So she's going to be teaching kids. I mean, it's not going to be obviously like full on fluent Tagalog. It's just going to be certain words, things like that, like parts culture. So she'll be doing that for my grandchild. But for my kids, I kind of like you said, go do things when things happen. And I'll say, oh, that's what we do. Like if we go to a party, I'll go, you got to kiss everybody. Those are all your aunts. And he's like, how am I related to him? I'm like, I don't know. You just don't.
I don't know. Just call them Auntie.
Just call them Auntie. And he's like, why? And you're like, because that's just what you do, because everybody's your family.
Yes.
I kind of explain as things come up. As you guys were talking, I was thinking about what it is to be a Filipino woman and how I would pass it down. And then I thought about how my aunt, who she passed quite some time ago, but she graduated from college in the Philippines with a master's in history, Filipino history. And when she used to live with us, she used to tell me Filipino history. And I'm like trying to think back of things she used to tell me. And like I said, one of the biggest things is the fact that Filipinos assimilated so well and that they were very generous. Mm-hmm. She told me one day when I was cooking rice, did you know that rice came from the Philippines? And I was like, she said it was cultivated in the Philippines, but we passed it on to people in Singapore. Mm-hmm. And then she said, she said, and I might be getting it wrong, that from Singapore it went to China. But she was saying that what happened was it started in the Philippines, but because we passed our knowledge, because we wanted to share our knowledge with everybody, whereas like she said, other cultures would take it and keep it for themselves. They would never pass it on to us, but we were so giving. She said they took it and made it better and claimed it as their own. So no one would ever have known it started with us. Wow. She said, so those rice paddies, she goes, the way they flooded them and the way they cultivated them came from us.
Yeah.
So she would tell me things like that. So I don't know if it's correct. I just went by what she knew because I believed she was very educated. She was very smart. She knew her history, or her favorite person in history was, I don't know his full, I just named, is it Rizal?
Jose Rizal. Yes.
Jose Rizal was who her paper was on. And now I'm trying to think about all the things she told me, because she was, like I said, she was a historian. She knew these facts that I was like, really? And it fascinated me because if you were to look that up, I mean, you would never know that, right? I mean,
yeah. And that's why it's so important to just have these casual conversations, passing these things down or passing these things on to each other, even if it's not to your kids, even to just other people in your own generation. It's like we've all been starved of that kind of information. And then to tie something like that, the story about rice, back to what's the story of rice in the Philippines today? The Philippines imports their rice today, which is wild.
That was the point. Yes, exactly. That's what she said. She said, why did we let that happen?
Exactly. And so that just speaks to the level of corruption, and it connects you to the need for activism, basically, and the history of activism in the Philippines, especially amongst Filipino women. And so, now I'm going off on a tangent, but that is the purpose of these conversations and asking those difficult questions. That's like, how do I identify, and remembering those little tidbits that you've picked up along the way, even if you didn't understand the context of them at the time.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. Thank you, Auntie Jen, for sharing that. And, the benefit of, I think, our generation today is oral history, like the way that we're going to collect history is this kind of fashion, like sharing what we learn from other people. And so I just think it's powerful. And I didn't know that. Like, if that's true, I did not know that. I was like, oh, we had rice, y'all. We started with this. I learned something new today.
I'm about to piggyback on that. So that suman, that's got to be us for sure. That sticky rice. I'm going to go with that with us too.
We're claiming that.
Awesome. I love it. So, as things are starting to open up, I feel like life today is going to start to look different. Like, I don't know about all of you, but Nani and I were talking about this in our last live workshop with the Filipino Momcast, that like, now that things are opening up, I feel like 2020 was a dream. Like, it just, all the Zoom calls, like just everything we're doing virtually, it just feels like it didn't happen because people are just out and about now. Like, even at the gym I go to, you don't have to wear a mask to walk in. It's just like, oh, if you're not vaccinated, wear a mask. But like, how do they track that? And, it's not like there's a bouncer at the entrance saying, hey, show me your vaccine card. But anyway, that's aside the point. It just feels like things are coming back to normal again, that it's just kind of weird, like trying to figure out like, okay, do I just kind of pick up where I left off before the pandemic hit or what? And so with that in mind, Auntie Jen, why don't you share with us, nowadays, and even if you are going through a transition right now as things are opening up, what keeps you busy or excited about life nowadays?
Planning vacations that we get to go somewhere now.
She's like, I'm ready to go.
Yeah. I mean, last night we went to a graduation party, and even my youngest daughter, Teo, she was like, so is it going to be a drive-by party? Or are we going to just stay there?
Yeah.
She's like, and do I have to wear a mask?
Yeah.
And this is a group of friends that we see often. So, and we, it's funny because, you walk in with a mask and then it just comes off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now with them, we don't even wear our masks. But of course, there was going to be some other people there. So we walked in and she was like, oh, so it's not a drive-by party. I was like, no, it's not.
That's so normalized now.
It is. But trying to get back, like you said, Jen, it was like, it's weird because you think to yourself, okay, so do we just, as of June, whatever date, are we just taking off our masks and things are back to normal? I mean, I don't know how I feel yet. I don't know how life is supposed to go. It definitely changed you mentally, or changed me mentally, I'd have to say.
Yeah.
I value life more. I value I like the fact that it brought me back to like the simple things, like wanting to craft again, wanting to make food again, things like that. Mm-hmm. So hopefully we can remember those things and incorporate it into the future.
Yeah. I feel like the pandemic was this time of like, okay, when things open up again, I promise I'll be a different person, and now that things are open up again, I'm curious to know if people will keep to their word, right?
Yeah.
I know. That's the thing. It's like New Year's Eve, or,
resolutions. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for being candid about that, Auntie Jen, because I think a lot of us are feeling that way, right? Like a lot of us are like, I don't know. Like, I think I have to go to therapy, maybe, maybe I need to like rewire my brain to get back into normal life. Like, I don't know. And I think a lot of people share that uncertainty. So thank you for just being candid about that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And Marie, same question to you. Obviously you're in Hawaii right now at the time of this recording. I mean, as things are starting to open up, what does life look like for you now? Or how do you hope that it'll look like now that things are kind of coming back to normal again?
I mean, prior to the pandemic, I was traveling a lot, as you know. And then I think in October, during all of this, I did take a trip to Mexico. So that was like my first time. But they were super strict in Mexico at the time on the pandemic. Well, I thought they were strict. I guess they weren't as strict as they later they totally didn't have any rules after. But at the time when we went, there were a lot of rules still in place. And it was more just a relaxing trip that was already like pre-planned, like we planned it earlier, thinking that everything was going to be fine by then, and it kind of wasn't. But it wasn't a wild one because Monique was pregnant. So we did just take it and, kind of stay to ourselves, and it was still social distance and everything. So that was my first time. And then I've kind of just been away. But once they let everything go, I did plan a girls trip, and I will tell you that the vaccine works because also since then, Chris had COVID. So I was in the house taking care of him, and I still had to test because I had really strict precautions to come here. So that was like another iffy thing. So I did have to quarantine after that, then test, and it had to be within a window before I could come here. So that was another kind of fiasco. And it couldn't just be from any provider. You had to have a list there was a list at the state of Hawaii and it had to have their seal on it.
Yeah. So I was curious about that. Like, did they make you guys show vaccine cards or like?
Well, they couldn't make everybody get a vaccine, but if you did have a vaccine card, like there was like a certain wristband that we had. And like, I was like,
for the flight,
take that wristband off for like before the flight, all the way getting through. Yeah. Like it was like, Hawaii is not a customs type of a trip. Right. It was almost like worse than customs. And so they're like really, really strict about everything. And then once we got here, I mean, you still have to wear a mask when you're around, but I mean, it's like 50-50. I think when people are drinking at the pool, they're not wearing masks and they're in the water and everything else. But I also kind of feel like I'm kind of okay because I know every single person that's here got a negative COVID test too.
That's true.
Some are vaccinated.
So it makes you more comfortable.
Yeah. So I felt good about that. But I feel like it's been decent. You still have to wear masks on the plane regardless. I mean, and you kind of just, they always give you a thing to clean your surrounding areas one more time once you're in your seat. So you do have a towelette to clean everything just before you actually use it, which I feel like is okay too.
I hope it stays that way.
Yeah, please clean the seat before I sit here.
Yeah,
I know that the games and stuff, it's kind of different. So I'm kind of thrown into certain things. So there's been a lot of like breaking me in, and then I go to a game next week. So
yeah, well, I think it also makes it difficult and maybe brings up more of that like anxiety and uncertainty for that to not be universal, for there to be like a different answer for every different place that you go.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think that's where I'm just like, okay, I'm going to let everyone else go first and just, see how it goes and give it some more time. And also, where am I going to go? I'm 7 months pregnant, but yeah, like did Mo wear a mask when she was delivering her baby? Like, can I take my mask off? Oh God, I'm going to pass out.
Marissa had a mask. I know. Actually, I think at one point she ripped it off and nobody said anything.
Yeah, but I'm going to.
I feel like, and they were strict with that. I mean, super, super strict on who could be there or not. And it's kind of the only way we got around it was when Vanessa and I signed up as a doula.
Oh,
wow. Nice.
Okay.
There you go, Nani.
And to tell you,
you're wondering how to get more than two people.
Plan. I'll give you the birth plan. I'll give you the birth plan that we use. So you have to specifically use that one because that birth plan will incorporate that. And I didn't even know all this stuff. I didn't even have any of this knowledge, but I'll give you the special one. Don't use the one that Kaiser gives you or your standard hospital one. That doesn't cover anything.
Yeah. I found one.
If you're going to use, I don't want you to forget to use the thing. Remember the placenta thing that I gave you?
Yeah. Yeah. So you'll have to tell me like what to tell them or what to write in the birth plan for that.
Yeah. So you want to make sure that if you're going to end up
that they save it.
The placenta. Yeah. And then that girl, me.
I'm like, do I just give it to someone in a plastic Ziploc bag or?
It's funny, well, like Chad or your mom or whoever you're going to have in there as your doula.
Oh, he will not touch it.
No,
and remember to tell them you have a dog too.
A dog?
Yeah, tell them that because you know what they did with Maui because we were afraid that when they were going to bring her home that, because your baby, Dallas is your baby. And when you bring the baby home, you don't want, not that he could really bite her. Her, but so to introduce them, they give you a towel that they used while you were birthing. You give it to the dog first and the dog will know the baby before it even enters the room.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard of that. Yes.
Yeah, they have this whole entire plan for your pets.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, no, that is something I'm concerned about because he's so overprotective and he's so territorial. And I'm just like, bro, chill out.
Oh yeah, for sure. Do that then. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Wow. Yeah, I need to know all these things to incorporate in my birth plan. I just found like a really like general one online that I filled out.
No. I have one. We have one. So I'll give that one.
Okay. Yeah. Send it to
me. And then, so, and then just have one of them will be figure out who you want to use.
Yeah.
And that's all you have to do.
Okay.
And then so you'll be fine. And then I'll take all your prenatals and everything. I mean, I'll tell you that, but that's for your placenta to be good.
Yeah, no, for sure. I've been taking that every day. But yeah, anyway, so getting back to the point, getting back to the question.
Little tangents over here.
Just a little one.
No, I think that's great. Yeah, no, I love it. Well, I think it is a good time to wrap up. And I want to start with Auntie Jen. Is there any parting advice or anything you want to share, maybe a mantra that you live by that you want to share with our listeners before we go? Like some parting words of wisdom.
Parting words of wisdom. For me, back then, I always, and actually Jason always told me, you always want to do something obviously a little bit for you, but that he's going to remember whatever you do. Whatever you do is going to affect him, because he was actually a child of divorce too. Mm-hmm. And so he used to tell me what affected him. And he would say, you don't ever want to do that because of this, or you don't want to do that because of this. And so whenever I made decisions, I always thought about what type of effect it would have on my child, even though maybe at that time it bothered me and it inconvenienced me at the time. So I think going back to like even what Fredette said, if you don't love those other children, or if you don't love that blended family unconditionally, then maybe it's something you need to think about before getting into a relationship. So
I love it. I appreciate that you want to wrap up on that, because that's really how our conversation started, right? Like the first half hour, I think, was really just about blended families. So thank you so much for sharing. Marie, any thoughts?
Literally, I just think life's too short to be angry over anything or over exes. I agree completely about, not taking on somebody with children if you don't think you can take that on. Okay. Also that it's just life's too short and you're making all the new norms for these kids. So that's literally, I wish somebody had told me that before, even though it seems pretty obvious now with everything that we're learning and stuff. I just wish, if there was anything I could tell my younger self, would be that we're making all their normal right now.
Wow, that's beautifully said. I mean, you create the normal for your kids, right? Like they look to you for what is normal. And so again, just both of you, thank you so much for being on the show and for showing what a healthy blended family looks like, and at least in my perspective. Nani, any closing thoughts from you?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize again the respect and appreciation and admiration that I have for both of you guys centering each other's kids in your lives and, caring so much to create that experience for them or create that sense of home or sense of belonging for them, whether they be at Auntie Jen's or at Fredette's house, and keeping that consistency, even, with or without D in the middle of everything. And it's just really rare, I think, is the point that we're all trying to make. And there is a stigma around not just like baby mama drama, but exes in general, when you enter into a relationship of this false sense of wanting to be territorial. And it's for what? Yeah. Again, you need to think about the impact that you're having on the innocent parties, which are the kids involved. And that's really the most important thing. And so I think that for anyone who is a part of a blended family, who has step parents or who is a step parent, that's just something really foundational, to sit with before you go forth in your family business, So yeah, thank you guys for modeling just such a healthy dynamic. And again, something that we just don't see often.
That would be really funny if your kids said otherwise. They're like, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah. It was awful. We hated all of it. I didn't like them.
Yeah. That'd be so funny if they listened to this later. They're like, what were you guys talking about? But again, it's your truth, your story, your perspective, both of your guys' relationship. And that's what matters. And we're so glad to have, caught a snippet of that today in our conversation. So, Marie and Auntie Jen, I want to thank you both again so much for being here. I mean, Maria, thank you again for coming back on the show, of course. And also want to give a quick shout out to your sister, Auntie Laura, who is episode 101. So if you want to check out her story and her interview, go ahead and check that out, episode 101. All right, that's it. We're going to wrap up here. So I want to thank you all again so much for joining us. And remember, our academic paper, Panay Podcasters, is out. Check out the website, panaypodcasters.com. And if you want to get a hold of us, 415-484-8329. And of course, our emails, Jen, that's JEN at TFAWproject.com, as well as Nani, NANI at TFAWproject.com, TFAW project.com. All right. We love you all, and we'll chat with you in the next episode. Tune in next time.
Bye.
Bye.